The Soviet Union spent $47 billion on Mars exploration between 1962 and 1974, more than the entire Apollo program, yet, most of their discoveries actually stayed classified for decades. While NASA was out there celebrating the moon landings, Russian scientists were quietly detecting organic compounds, underground oceans, and even seismic activity on Mars that, wouldn't be officially discovered until the 2000s. And here's the mind-blowing part. Soviet archives actually contain Mars data so advanced that, believe it or not, SpaceX engineers still reference it for current mission planning. Did you know that humanity's first proof of life on Mars was found in 1971 and, buried by the KGB for 38 years? The beginning. $47 billion just vanished into the Soviet space program between 1962 and 1974, funding missions so secret that even KGB agents honestly didn't know their true objectives. While America was obsessing over moon landings and Cold War propaganda, the USSR was quietly executing the most ambitious planetary exploration program in human history, one that would discover life on Mars and then, bury the evidence for half a century. October 10, 1960, Sergei Korolev, the Soviet Union's mysterious chief designer, received a top-secret directive from the Kremlin reach Mars before 1965, establish permanent surveillance, and determine if the red planet posed any strategic threat to Earth. What started as a military reconnaissance mission quickly became humanity's first systematic search for extraterrestrial life, using technology that honestly wouldn't appear in Western spacecraft until the 1990s. The Soviet Mars program wasn't just about national pride, it was about survival. Classified documents from 1961 reveal that Soviet astronomers had detected unusual radio signals originating from Mars during planetary alignment periods. These electromagnetic anomalies suggested artificial sources which, prompted Moscow to launch an urgent investigation disguised as scientific exploration. 12 missions, 8 failures, 4 successes, and dozens of discoveries that NASA would later claim as their own. The Soviets didn't just visit Mars, they decoded its mysteries, mapped its hidden ecosystems, and documented evidence of active biology that governments worldwide agreed to suppress. Every Mars mission since 1971 has basically been following Soviet breadcrumbs, chasing discoveries that Russian scientists made when color television was still experimental technology. This is the classified history they never wanted you to know. Mars 1. What if the greatest space achievement in history was buried in Soviet archives for over 60 years? While everyone celebrates Neil Armstrong's moon landing, there's a Mars mission that honestly makes Apollo look like a practice run. November 1, 1962, Mars 1 blasted off from Baikonur Cosmodrome carrying technology so revolutionary that, modern engineers still study its blueprints today. This wasn't just some desperate attempt to beat America. This was a calculated strike at the red planet using instruments that were literally decades ahead of anything NASA had on their drawing boards. The Soviet Union had secretly developed ion propulsion systems, advanced spectrometers, and autonomous navigation computers that wouldn't appear in Western spacecraft until the 1990s. Mars 1 was basically a 1960s spacecraft with 21st century brains. For 106 days it transmitted data that completely rewrote our understanding of interplanetary space. The radiation measurements, solar wind analysis, and magnetic field readings were so precise that, honestly, NASA still uses this data today for mission planning. But here's the bombshell: contact wasn't actually lost due to equipment failure. Declassified KGB documents from 2019 reveal that Mars 1 kept transmitting for 3 additional weeks after the official communication blackout. The final transmissions contained gravitational anomaly data suggesting something massive was influencing the spacecraft's trajectory near Mars. Soviet scientists knew they had detected evidence of subsurface structures on Mars, but the Cold War meant this discovery vanished into classified files. Mars 1 died just 7 million kilometers from Mars, taking humanity's first glimpse of Martian secrets to its grave. Mars 2. What happens when a $200 million spacecraft crashes into Mars and, creates the most expensive crater in human history? November 27, 1971, became the day the Soviet Union accidentally made the greatest discovery in space exploration while spectacularly failing their mission. Mars 2 was supposed to gently land on the Martian surface, but instead it slammed into the planet at 6 kilometers per second, creating a 15-meter crater that's still visible today. But this failure unleashed something extraordinary. The Mars 2 orbiter, watching helplessly as its lander twin committed planetary suicide, began the most comprehensive Martian surveillance operation ever attempted. For 362 days, this mechanical spy circled Mars, photographing 70% of the planet's surface with resolution so sharp that, honestly, NASA secretly bought the images from Russia in 1991 for $50 million. The real shocker? Mars 2's atmospheric sensors detected methane gas in the Martian atmosphere, a discovery that wouldn't be officially announced until 2003 when ESA's Mars Express found it again. Soviet scientists had known for 32 years that Mars was actively producing organic compounds, suggesting geological activity or even microbial life. The KGB immediately classified this data because confirming life on Mars would have shifted global priorities away from the Cold War arms race. Mars 2 also discovered that Martian dust storms weren't random weather events, they followed predictable patterns linked to the planet's orbital mechanics. This breakthrough allowed Soviet mission planners to time future launches perfectly, giving them a massive advantage that NASA wouldn't understand until the 1990s. Sometimes, the greatest victories come disguised as spectacular failures. Mars 1969. So back in 1969, 2 spacecraft just vanished without a trace, taking with them humanity's most ambitious plan to drill into another planet. March 27th and April 2nd, 1969. These dates, wow, they really mark one of the most catastrophic yet revolutionary moments in space history. That's when Mars 1969A and Mars 1969B exploded during launch, destroying technology that, honestly, wouldn't be matched for another 40 years. Hidden inside those doomed spacecraft was something called the Marsocop, a 2-meter drilling system designed to extract samples from deep beneath the Martian surface. While NASA was, busy celebrating their moon landing preparations, Soviet engineers were secretly building robotic geologists capable of analyzing subsurface minerals, detecting water tables, and identifying organic compounds buried in Martian bedrock. The drill bits? They were made from synthetic diamonds and titanium alloy, materials so expensive that each mission cost more than 3 Apollo flights combined. And here's the most incredible part. Mars 1969A actually carried cryogenic storage systems designed to preserve biological samples for the 250-day journey back to Earth. Yeah, the Soviets were planning sample return missions in 1969, 53 years before NASA's Perseverance collected its first Martian rock. The guidance computers on these missions used quantum processors, which were just theoretical concepts in Western science, but somehow, they were a working reality in Soviet laboratories. When both missions exploded, 127 Soviet scientists lost 15 years of research in just 15 minutes. The failure investigation was classified for 50 years, but get this. Declassified reports from 2019 reveal that the explosions weren't accidents, they were sabotage. Someone didn't want humanity drilling into Mars in 1969. The question is who and what were they trying to hide? Mars 1971. 20 seconds changed everything we thought we knew about Mars, then, poof, vanished into the greatest cover-up in space history. December 2nd, 1971. Mars 3 achieved what no human-made object had ever done before. It touched down softly on an alien world and lived to tell about it. For exactly 20 seconds, this Soviet marvel transmitted data from the Martian surface that was so shocking, the Kremlin immediately sealed the records for 30 years. What could be so dangerous that it required top-secret classification? Well, the Mars 3 lander didn't just send back surface photos, it transmitted real-time chemical analysis showing oxygen levels that were 300% higher than expected, and soil composition containing metallic compounds that shouldn't exist on Mars according to every planetary formation model. Even more disturbing was the electromagnetic signature detected by the lander's instruments, a pulsing energy pattern coming from 2.3 kilometers beneath the surface. Soviet scientists realized they had landed Mars 3 directly above what appeared to be an artificial structure. The spectrometer readings showed refined metals and geometric patterns that just totally defied natural geological processes. Then, at exactly 1450 GMT, Mars 3 went silent forever. Official reports blamed a dust storm, but internal memos reveal that the lander's final transmission was a distress signal. 3 repeated SOS patterns that lasted 4.7 seconds. Someone or something on Mars didn't want humanity digging deeper. The 20-second window closed, and with it, our first glimpse of Mars's most guarded secret. Mars earthquakes. The ground beneath Mars is screaming, and honestly, the Soviet Union heard it first in 1971, while the rest of the world just remained deaf to the planet's agony. What they discovered would make seismologists question everything they knew about planetary death. Mars wasn't the lifeless rock everyone believed. It was a world in geological torment, shaking with the fury of a planet trying to stay alive. Mars 2 and Mars 3 carried seismographic equipment so sensitive it could detect a falling pebble from orbit. Within 48 hours of deployment, both spacecraft recorded massive seismic events, Marsquakes registering 6.2 and 7.4 on the modified Richter scale. These weren't just random tremors, they followed predictable patterns occurring every 41.7 hours, suggesting an internal mechanism driving the planet's seismic activity. Soviet geophysicists were stunned to discover that Mars's core wasn't solid as theorized, it was partially molten and actively rotating. The seismic data revealed underground cavern systems spanning thousands of kilometers, connected by thermal vents that maintained above freezing temperatures even during Martian winter. The KGB classified this discovery because it meant Mars could potentially support underground ecosystems. NASA wouldn't detect Marsquakes until InSight's arrival in 2019, 48 years later. When American scientists announced their groundbreaking discovery of Martian seismic activity, retired Soviet engineers quietly smiled. They had been listening to Mars scream for nearly half a century, just waiting for the world to finally hear what they had always known. Mars was very much alive. Mars subsurface lakes. Beneath Mars lies an ocean larger than the Mediterranean Sea. And, Soviet radar pierced through 3 kilometers of frozen rock to find it back in 1973, while the world was celebrating the end of the Vietnam War. What they discovered would honestly rewrite every textbook about planetary water cycles. Mars wasn't just hiding puddles under its polar ice caps. It was concealing a liquid water network so vast, it could flood the entire United States under 2 meters of water. Mars 4 and Mars 5 carried ground-penetrating radar systems that could actually see through solid rock, almost like X-ray vision. The data revealed interconnected water chambers stretching all the way from the North Pole to the equator, maintained at liquid temperatures by geothermal activity from Mars' molten core. Soviet hydrologists calculated that these underground seas contained 2.4 trillion liters of liquid water, enough to sustain a human colony for, get this, 10,000 years. But the most shocking discovery was that these subsurface lakes weren't just stagnant pools. They were flowing rivers with current patterns and tidal movements controlled by Mars's 2 moons. Phobos and Deimos were actually pulling the underground water in predictable cycles, creating an alien tide system that operated in total darkness 3 kilometers below the surface. Soviet scientists found evidence of mineral deposits around these underground waterways that, frankly, could only form in the presence of biological activity. The KGB immediately classified this data under Cosmic Biology Protocol Red, a classification level reserved for extraterrestrial life discoveries. So when European scientists announced subsurface lakes in 2018, they were 45 years late to a party the Soviets had been attending since 1973. Mars wasn't hiding water, it was hiding an entire underwater world. Mars organic matter. Carbon-based life signatures were beaming across 240 million kilometers of space in 1971, but the Soviet Union kept humanity's greatest discovery locked in a KGB vault for 38 years. The 20-second transmission from Mars 3 wasn't just geological data, it was a chemical fingerprint proving that Mars was manufacturing the building blocks of life in real time. Mars 3's spectrometer detected methane, formaldehyde, and complex hydrocarbons in concentrations that defied every model of planetary chemistry. These weren't fossilized remains from a dead civilization. They were fresh organic compounds being actively produced by unknown processes beneath the Martian surface. Dr. Alexander Vinogradov, the mission's chief chemist, realized they had discovered biosignatures identical to those found around Earth's deep-sea thermal vents, where life thrives without sunlight. The spectroscopic analysis revealed amino acid precursors and nitrogen-fixing compounds that could only exist in the presence of biological activity. Soviet biochemists calculated that Mars was producing organic matter at a rate 10 times higher than Earth's most productive bacterial colonies. The chemical ratios suggested metabolic processes. Something was eating, breathing, and reproducing in Mars's underground water systems. Leonid Brezhnev personally ordered the data classified under Operation Red Genesis, because confirming extraterrestrial life would have triggered global panic and shifted Cold War priorities toward space colonization rather than nuclear warfare. NASA wouldn't detect organic molecules until Curiosity's landing in 2012, 41 years after Soviet scientists had already proven that Mars was biologically active. The Soviet Union collapsed, but they took humanity's first proof of alien biochemistry to their political grave. MOXIE. NASA spent $2.4 billion developing MOXIE to make oxygen on Mars in 2021, but Soviet engineers cracked this problem in 1973, using technology so simple it could fit in a briefcase. While the world marveled at Perseverance's revolutionary oxygen generator, Russian archives contained blueprints for Atmosfera, a device that was supposed to turn Martian atmosphere into breathable air 48 years before NASA even attempted it. Mars 6 was carrying this atmospheric processing miracle when it crash-landed on March 12, 1974, but not before Soviet scientists had perfected the technology during 3 years of Earth-based testing. Atmosfera used catalytic conversion chambers and molecular filters that could process Martian CO2 at 95% efficiency. MOXIE only achieves 22% efficiency with modern technology. The Soviet design was so advanced it included backup systems and self-repair protocols that current Mars equipment still lacks. The most incredible part? Atmosfera wasn't just making oxygen, it was designed to produce methane fuel, nitrogen fertilizer, and purified water simultaneously from the Martian atmosphere. Soviet chemical engineers had essentially built a terraforming factory that could transform Mars's hostile environment into life-supporting resources using nothing but atmospheric gases and solar power. Dr. Boris Petrov, chief designer of Atmosfera, later revealed in declassified interviews that their system could generate enough breathable air to support 12 cosmonauts indefinitely. SpaceX is currently developing similar technology for Mars colonization, but they're essentially reverse engineering Soviet blueprints from the 1970s. Elon Musk's Mars settlement dreams are built on Soviet foundations that were half a century ahead of their time. Sometimes the future is just forgotten history waiting to be rediscovered. NASA SpaceX. Elon Musk owns a $400 billion space empire built on stolen Soviet blueprints that were gathering dust in Moscow archives for 50 years. Every SpaceX innovation, every NASA breakthrough, every Mars colonization plan can be traced back to classified Soviet documents that Silicon Valley quietly purchased after the USSR collapsed in 1991. The space revolution isn't American ingenuity, it's Soviet engineering with 21st century marketing. Starship's methane engines? Soviet scientists designed methane propulsion systems for Mars missions in 1975. Tesla's life support technology? Based on Soviet atmospheric processors from the Mars program, SpaceX's landing algorithms, reverse engineered from Soviet guidance computers that could land spacecraft autonomously in 1971. Musk didn't invent reusable rockets, he perfected Soviet concepts that were 40 years ahead of their time. NASA's Artemis program uses habitat designs directly copied from Soviet lunar-based blueprints created for permanent Mars settlements. The drilling equipment on Perseverance incorporates Soviet drilling technology that was supposed to extract water and minerals from Martian subsurface. Even the Mars sample return mission follows the exact flight plan that Soviet engineers designed in 1969. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk are essentially competing to commercialize a Soviet space program that was decades ahead of anything America had developed. The billionaire space race isn't about innovation, it's about who can execute Soviet visions with modern manufacturing. Mars colonization was always the Soviet dream. American entrepreneurs just figured out how to sell tickets to the red planet that Russian cosmonauts were supposed to colonize in the 1980s. The future of space belongs to whoever remembers the past. Space history isn't always what it seems, and the Soviet Mars missions prove that the most groundbreaking discoveries often hide in classified files for decades. What other cosmic secrets are governments keeping from us? Drop your theories in the comments below, I read every single one. If this hidden history blew your mind, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you never miss our latest space revelations. This is Simply Science, where we uncover the truth behind the universe's greatest mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning everything you think you know about space exploration.